I've been waking up at 4:30 in the morning on purpose.
Ew. Really? I've been waking up at like 7 by accident. Am I maturing or dying?
I don't know.
Why are you waking up at 4:30 in the morning? What happened to you?
Yeah.
To try to work out at 5 so I can be done by 6 so I can be showered by the time that the family wakes up and I can help with all that.
Is it worth it?
What time do you go to sleep at?
9:30 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's funny because I go to bed at 9:30, but I still don't wake up till 8.
No, yeah, 9:30 I'm down and then 4:30 I'm up. So far, it's not bad. I like the energy I have from getting a full workout in before the day starts.
Are you still doing Orange Theory?
That's part of the reason is that Orange Theory's early class is at 5 or 6:15. So I was doing 6:15. And then their earliest class is 5. So I'm like, okay, well, 5, 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock, I can be good to go. And so that's how it's been for the last 2 days. But who knows? Who knows what'll happen? Everything might fall off the rails, but so far it's.
I admire your fortitude and your discipline, and glad that you're staying in shape despite like big changes in the Justin Robert Young world.
Yeah, I'm proud of you, but it's gross. Like that time of day is wrong.
I'm also maturing emotionally because I noticed that it was a better temperature in Austin than it was in DC yesterday. And despite taking screen grabs, I didn't send them to you, Heaton.
I appreciate that very much. I appreciate that. I talked to Brushwood about this maybe 2 months ago. I've started waking up randomly once or twice a week. I'll wake up at like 5:50 and I'm leaning into it when I do it. Unless I'm exhausted, I'll go, okay. And I'll kind of get up and do it. And then about once or twice a week now, I have to get up early just to get work done because of everything going on. And Brushwood was like, you should just do it all the time. Like wake up at 5 all the time. You'll be really productive. And I was like, but I feel like I can wake up then. I can tell my brain doesn't actually go to 100% until 10 or 11 a.m., regardless of when I wake up. So I can wake up, but I'm at like impulse power. He was basically like, well, then do shit at impulse power. And then you have the rest of the day when you're actually in a good mood. But I want to stress this. I am not in a good mood or intelligent or creative. So is it worth me waking up to do it? Like, do I just do drudgery?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's why I work out. Like, because you don't want to think. The biggest thing that stops me from working out is convincing myself I either don't need to work out or that I have something more important to do. And so that is the thing that happens when the brain is really
and that's
cranking.
Easy to do when you got a lot going on.
Because I'm amazing at that.
Yeah.
I'm amazing at convincing myself that right now I need to go do a thing instead of working out. But if it's at 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning, then A, my brain is feeble, and B, there's not a whole lot else that I could
for a while. What I would do is I would go to, my rule was I just have to go to the gym for 10 minutes because I don't want to go to the gym. Like if the second they make a exercise pill, I will never cross the threshold of a gym again for the rest of my life. It is so insanely boring to me. I'm only doing it not to die. Is that going
to be with the multivitamin that makes you gay? You're just going to be a gay gym bro.
Come on, science. I want to be buff and gay.
A gym pill.
I want to be like worried about HIV in the 90s. I want all of that.
It is the muscle daddy multivitamin. For Heaton. That's what he's looking for.
But my rule for a while, because I don't want to be there, and I'd be like, I don't want to go. But like my rule was just I just have to go for 10 minutes. And 90% of the time when you do that, you're like, well, I'm already here. You just keep working out. Every once in a while, though, I would go in for like, I think my rule is I just have to go. I don't even have to stay there. And like 1 out of 30 times, I'd go in and be like, no, I was right. I fucking don't want to be here. And be like, well, I came. All right, time to go then. I'm going to honor the deal I made with myself. Worked real well.
That happened to me for the first time ever last week. I've been told by some of my coaches that I'm pushing it too hard. So I was like, okay, like I'll just lift today. Like that'll kind of count as a rest day. And so I always stretch beforehand, and I have a yoga app that tells me what to do. And at one point it had me leaning over my legs and I fell asleep. And so I realized that the app was on a totally different exercise. It was a different song. And I was like, yeah, I can't lift. And so I just packed it up, went home. Never happened to me before.
And that might be age too.
I mean, I'm pushing it too hard. I know I'm pushing it too hard.
Yeah.
So
you're
today
out
I'm
there
taking a real rest day.
on the dunes.
Yeah. I was talking to one of the coaches and he's like, yeah, going for a long bike ride or lifting is not resting. Because he was like, how many rest days do you take? And I was like, well, probably like 2 where I just lift or go for a bike. He's like, no, like resting is you sit on the couch, you watch Netflix for 8 hours. Like, oh,
I think this is a weird thing about our species. No other mammal species just thinks it should operate at 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Like you look at like a dog, dogs like run around a lot and then they sleep about 12 hours a day. Like dogs like their automatic default is standby mode. And that's most mammals are like, fantastic. I don't have to exert calories right now. That's good because we might all starve to death. Human beings are unique and that we're like, no, you should be 100% doing something all the time unless you're sleeping. Like we're very weird in that regard.
Have I told you that I think my dog is suicidal? Have we had this conversation yet?
No.
So about 3 weeks ago,
real quick. Did your dog coordinate a lot of underage women to some kind of island at some point? Because I think you need to get this in writing right now that your dog doesn't want to kill itself so we can head off some conspiracy theories.
Yeah, she's running her own puppy mill. Yeah. No, she keeps trying to leap from things and trying to kill herself. So it started with a bike ride where she jumped out of, like, she was in her backpack in a basket on the front of Joe's bike. And for no reason whatsoever, jumped out of the little window, got hit by the bike. And then, yeah, it was pretty bad. She had like a little cut on her lip. But other than that, she survived because it was totally intentional. There was no reason for this.
Yeah.
And so, we got over that. And then on the 4th of July, she leapt out of my friend's arms, also for no reason whatsoever, and tore a ligament in her knee. And so what we've been told is we have to keep her on strict rest for 3 weeks. And if she doesn't get any better, then we have to have surgery. And so the struggle that we're having now is like on the 4th of July, she was really tired because she had been up all day and then was in pain. Like we didn't go to the vet till the 5th. And so she didn't sleep at all. So for the first 2 days, it was great. Now she's bored.
Yeah.
So like we're trying to keep this little creature who you would think would be like, oh, I'm injured, I'm going to rest. It's like, no, she wants to have the zoomies. She tried to jump off the bed today. She just keeps trying to leap to her death. And I don't know how to keep her alive. It's getting to the point that I want to like stick her in a backpack, even though we're just at home. But that also feels like cruel. So yeah, for the next 3 weeks, Joe and I have to just be watching this creature at all times, basically on suicide watch.
What if you get like a doggy, like emergency flotation device that she wears all the time, so she's got like cushioning.
She bounces.
Yeah, so she bounces.
That's
like
what
a doggy
have
bubble
for babies that are learning to crawl. They strap on a backpack that has a little head ring to it, so they can fall back and not smash their head.
It's actually not the worst idea I've ever heard because she's really trying to leap today. So
yeah,
I don't know. That's creative because they wouldn't give her a cast or anything.
Either that or cement shoes.
You ever put her on pharmaceuticals? I hate to be the pill guy just because I want an exercise pill and a gay pill, but I think maybe your dog should be on pills.
Well, we did give her pills, but they're not like once she starts feeling better, like that's the problem. We don't want her to be in pain, so she can't feel it. And so then she wants to play with all her toys.
Well,
I mean, at this point, I'm kind of
that's not the pill I'm talking about. So trazodone was a game changer for Wallace. So Wallace is pretty high strung. He just like he'll be in the house with the one human being he truly loves, which is me, and we will have played and eaten and gone on a walk, and he'll just kind of start getting nervous. I don't give him trazodone all the time, but he gets really nervous in cars. Like he gets like really, really scared in cars. And so I'll give him a half dose of trazodone, and it just lets him be normal. It lets him be neutral. It allows him to exist in a neutral state. And so like the other night, 4th of July, Wallace was scared shitless. Real side note, I bet the 4th of July is really confusing to deer. from their perspective, for no reason, World War III happens just randomly.
I
right?
feel bad about it for dogs. I am happy about it for deer. I hope the deer are terrorized. They are terrible, terrible creatures.
Wallace was scared shitless. I got back and he wouldn't leave the house. Like usually we go on a nighttime stroll, and like he wouldn't leave the house. But I put him on trazodone, and that helped. So if I don't give it to him every day, but when he's going to be in a high stress situation, I do find that it just makes his life a little easier. Makes my life easier too. So maybe if she's looking to jump out of stuff, particularly right now where she's in recuperation mode, something like that would be helpful.
I am wondering if maybe she heard a firework because it was the 4th of July that she jumped out of my friend's arms. Like maybe she heard something. I don't know, but it's all I know is that right now Joe and I are on 24-hour dog watch, and it's annoying. And I'm starting to think maybe I should behave like the Epstein guards and just kind of stand
go to
by.
sleep. Just go to sleep.
Yeah, like I didn't see her
For
jump.
1 minute at 11:59. From Austin, Texas, I'm Justin Robert Young from a plain path in Southern California.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm Jen Briney.
And from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C.,
I'm Andrew Heaton.
And we're not wrong. On this edition of the program, we're going to be talking about old Jeffrey Epstein. Case closed, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing more to worry about. At least according to the Department of Justice and the FBI. We're also going to be talking about Tucker Carlson's decision to interview the Iranian president and whether or not that is in or out of journalistic bounds. That and your emails. Heaton, how is DC? Are there a lot of people there now, or does that like empty out? Is it like some of those, northeastern places where people just fuck off for the entire summer?
There's a lot of that, although it's kind of weird. So I'm in Alexandria, and while I'm on the metro line and I go into DC proper once or twice a week, I feel like my social life has congealed into a Northern Virginia area rather than a DC proper type area. So I'm part of the greater DMV, but I don't know. I don't feel like I've got a really good grasp of proper DC life at this time, given that a lot of the stuff I do is in Arlington and Alexandria. But yeah, people, if they can leave in August, they will leave in August. And the vibes aren't great right now. Like if I go to a place where I don't know people, they're like, I went to a Braver Angels event maybe 3 or 4 months ago. If
That's
folks
a real
don't know
barn
what,
burner, sure.
If folks don't, it's very much a Heaton type thing. If folks don't know what Braver Angels is an attempt to build dialogue between conservatives and progressives, and it's a very nice organization. I very much applaud what they're doing, but no conservatives showed up. It was 34 to 50 people that were all progressives, and so half of them just wanted to bitch about conservatives. And then the other half that was genuinely trying also clearly felt very embattled. Like some of them had just lost their jobs. So the vibes are in DC, I find, generally we are being occupied by a foreign power. How long can we stay here before we fall? And so it's, I don't know, it's just not, people aren't like popping champagne bottles, at least randomly with federal employees.
My friend Kirk Beto, hotline editor for the National Journal, said that the happy hours are getting longer and longer. They're encroaching further and further toward noon because there's just more and more people that don't got the same gigs or gigs at all that they had a little while ago. But that is an underreported. It is for cities that are often overcovered, of which there are few more self-important than DC and New York City, mainly because they have metropolitan dailies that also serve as national surrogates for the industries that they cover. I do think it's undercovered how much the 1-2 punch of a super strict lockdown and then the Trump wave of federal government right sizing has, put a big hurt on DC. Like DC is not going to be the same town in 5 years that it was certainly 10 years ago, because they already had a wave of this through COVID and all the lockdown stuff, because they were really harsh with it.
I think that was a big change. Like I moved to DC for the first time in 2008 or 2009. And I moved to Capitol Hill when Capitol Hill was no longer even up and coming. Capitol Hill was where wealthy lobbyists lived. Yeah. And H Street, what was the term? It was vibrant, which meant that it was super cool, but you might get brained. Like that's what vibrant means in urban speak. And gotcha. But it was cool. But it was
full of local color.
Full of local color. Also, there was an alliance between the gangs and the deaf kids. So like Gallaudet is the school for the deaf. That's where I was staying at because I didn't know what I was doing with my life. So I just stayed at the deaf dorms the first month I was at DC. And if you went north of Gallaudet, it was dangerous. You should not do, like I was stopped by multiple people where they're like, do not walk north. You will die. And I'd be like, what about those deaf kids? And they're like, they're fine. They're deaf. Like apparently like they worked out some deal where like the gangs are like, no, we'll do some shit, but not to deaf kids.
They're both really good at sign language, gang members and the deaf.
Nice.
That being said, though, the crime rates were all going down. Like when you looked at it, it was like the Marion Barry days were over. Marion Barry, peace be upon him, had a great quote of
the Night
Washington, D.C. has very low crime rate if you don't consider the homicides, which, like terrific. And that all kind of started spiking again during the pandemic. One of my friends got beaten up pretty bad. And I think it's, that they shut down a lot of businesses, and then like people that are on the edges lost economic footing, and it caused all those disruptions, and it caused a spike in crime. And I don't know what the current right sizing will do, but it'll probably alter the feelings in the city.
I think it's bad. I mean, everybody I talk to in DC is that the vibes are terrible, are rock bottom awful. Like, because a lot of people have lost their gigs or they took buyouts, and they don't know whether or not they are there. It's like, all right, is it time to just spruce up the old resume and head on out somewhere else? I don't know. But
or wait it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about somebody that doesn't have to worry. Well, I guess Jeffrey Epstein doesn't have to worry about much. He's dead, but certainly nobody connected to him has to worry about much, because the United States Department of Justice and the FBI announced the conclusion of their exhaustive review, their words, into Jeffrey Epstein's files. Their findings: there was no client list, quote unquote. No credible evidence was uncovered to suggest that Epstein blackmailed prominent figures or implicated third parties. Additionally, the agencies reaffirmed that Epstein died by suicide in his Manhattan jail cell on August 10th, 2019. A conclusion supported by autopsy reports and, according to them, enhanced video footage showing that nobody entered his cell when the cause of death said he died. The review encompasses over 300 gigabytes of digital evidence and tens of thousands of photos and videos, much of which remains sealed to protect victims, materials that, according to officials, would add little of public value while risking further harm. The Department of Justice emphasized their priority remains combating child exploitation and cautioned against perpetuating conspiracy theories, which is rich because Kash Patel and Dan Bongino run the FBI. The announcement have inflamed online communities who hoped Trump's DOJ would shed new light on the case. Attorney General Pam Bondi courted such attention earlier this year when she was the Attorney General, inviting influencers to the White House to give them binders marked Epstein Files on them. Jen, case closed, right? Short segment, in and out, 5 minutes.
Which was, you know what? Not going to say it. Continue. Please continue.
Well, now you have to say it.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Alan Dershowitz says what? Just kidding.
Yeah,
don't sue me, Alan.
No, fuck that guy. He wouldn't come on my show. Actually, he agreed to come on and I read his goddamn book and then he dropped out and wouldn't come on. Fuck you. I hate it when they do that. I hate it when they do that.
Then sue the political orphanage, not this show. Anyway, go ahead, Jen.
I'm going to be no fun here because I do admit that especially during COVID when we were all bored and Jeffrey Epstein had just killed himself. So to end a bunch of unrelated sentences with, you know, he didn't kill himself. It was hilarious. And I understand where the conspiracy theories came from because he was buddies with so many powerful people, including Donald Trump and Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew and Bill Gates. I mean, the story is just amazing. But I tend to think that just Jeffrey Epstein had motive to kill himself because he had this incredible life, lots of money, lots of, you know, little girls doing things for him. And so for him to have to spend the rest of his life in a cage, I don't think it's far-fetched to think that he would have done it. And I do think when you have people like Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, who are bullshit artists, who are able to say whatever they want when they're outside of the government, it's a different role when you're inside of it. And so I think that it's fun to be like, oh, now they're covering up for Donald Trump because he's in the files. But it's like the Biden administration had those files for 4 years. Do you think for 1 second, if they had something on Trump in there, that they would have kept it to themselves? Yeah. I think they would have thrown Bill Clinton under the bus so fucking fast if it would have stopped Trump from winning the election. So I tend to believe that, probably case closed. Now, I think that sucks for Ghislaine, who's, you know, she's in jail for things that apparently are not a big deal. So I don't know. I think it's been very messy since the beginning, but I actually think that he probably killed himself in that cell. Although the 1 minute of missing footage.
I mean, why even put
why release
that out?
it? I
or
know.
Put it out without an explainer. Because I'm prone to believe if it was 11:59 and then it restarts at midnight, that it's probably some mechanical thing where it's an unfortunate
it backs up
quirk.
at that time or whatever. Yeah.
Or it's a timestamp issue. Like there was no missing minute.
It's like at 11:59, the camera does some kind of reboot to delete things and it's a local storage issue. There's a million different things that I could think of. And if you're like, whoa, real convenient. It's like, have you ever actually looked at scale level solutions for stuff like that? It's not cutting edge. It's they bought it once in 1981 and then they have had servicing from the same vendor since then. So that is not the craziest thing to me. Now, if it was at 11:21 and then it went to 11:22 and they were like, oh, it deletes at this time, I'd be like, that's a little weird. But anyway,
11:59 kind of checks out.
It feels like, okay, that feels a little bit more mechanical. But so let me ask you about the Kash Patel Bongino part of this. Do you believe if there was something to throw out there that they would be maybe even reckless in throwing it out there? Does the fact that they are taking a powder on this mean something different than if it were just some FBI bureaucrat?
I think it kind of does, because I think it's basic human instinct to want to be right, especially publicly. And they were so far out on a ledge on this one. That for them to have to be the people that come out and say like, yeah, you know, all that bullshit that I was spouting, like, yeah, I was full of it the whole time. They have to eat it. So why would they eat it? Like their incentive is to be like, hey, we found a thing. Look at all. And even if like they found a Democrat in there, like they would want to say it and they didn't. So I don't see any motivation for them to do this, including protecting Donald Trump. I just don't see why they would do this unless they had to. It makes them look like liars, which also I think checks out. So, I'm inclined to believe it, even though that's not fun. I know it's fun to go down the rabbit hole. It's not fun.
Jen obviously was on the list. What say you?
You know what? Case closed. Everybody don't overthink it. There's no reason to look into this any further. And again, if anybody had met Jeffrey Epstein at a political action event where he or she was performing stand-up comedy and subsequently got invited to Epstein's Island to perform stand-up comedy where they mostly played shuffleboard, didn't diddle anybody, and had to sleep next to fucking Alan Dershowitz, who snores like a goddamn chainsaw, then it wouldn't even matter. So let's just all put us behind us and not overthink it. That's my position.
Heaton's extended kayfabe improv that he was on Epstein Island has been repeated with such fidelity on so many different programs that now I'm not sure if it's a bit.
Okay, so in seriousness, I take Jen's position on this. However, I have pivoted back and forth on this one. So this is a great opportunity, listeners, for us to engage in Bayesian reasoning, a wonderful intellectual tool that I will take out of the old tool compartment of my brain for a minute. Bayesian reasoning is, I think, a more accurate way of looking at things, which is very, very little of the time do people 100% believe something. Most of the time we're conflicted about it to some extent. We come down and go, I largely believe this particular perspective, but there are a couple of things that makes me feel a little weird about it. So like, for example, the Kennedy assassination, I like at this point, about 60% believe the official narrative, but about 40% of me goes, there's some stuff that doesn't really stack up there. I like if an angel came down and went, what do you think happened? I'm going to kill you if you get it wrong. Yep. I think probably the official narrative is what I'm going to err on, but I have a lot of reservations there.
I'm the opposite.
Oh, the opposite. You think like there's some weird shit. You know what? Like the Congress did its own investigation and it came up with different results than the Church Commission the Church Commission. Like Congress was like, yeah, there were multiple people that killed him. Like that, like official congressional inquest. I'm like, you don't ever hear about that shit, right? It's one of the things that makes me go, there's some details here that are a bit odd. With Epstein, I engaged in the he didn't kill himself thinking for a little bit. And I 30, maybe 20% believe that, but I 70 to 80% think that, he's dead. He killed himself for all the reasons that Jen brought up. The best one, I think, logically is why wouldn't someone have I think the conspiracy theories now are once Trump got into office, his underlings are unable to fulfill their obligations to release the quote unquote Epstein list because Trump was on it. And if that were true, why didn't that come out during either Obama at the tail end of the administration when all sorts of stuff was being thrown at Donald Trump, including the Russiagate thing, or during Biden? Why wouldn't it have happened during Biden? I find that very telling. So I think when you're not entirely sure about it, Occam's razor is the way to go. Hanlon's razor is the way to go. And the position that I find myself on is it's not fun or sexy, but probably he killed himself. I watched a documentary on him a few years ago, and right before he killed himself, I want to say within a week of killing himself, he gave all of his assets to like a non-charitable trust in the Cayman Islands or something like that. And it was kind of like a fuck you can't have my money move. Yeah. That looked like he was getting his affairs in order. And then once that came through, killed himself. And that to me looked like, I think that follows the position of somebody that wants to whack themselves. Now, I'll say that the bits that give me pause, this is the 20% of the Bayesian reasoning that makes me not at 100%, is as follows. Back in 2016, I found it really, 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 really weird that Trump did not bring this up because Trump brought up every fucking thing he could during 2016, including claiming, back to the Kennedy assassination, that Ted Cruz's dad killed JFK. That was something Trump peddled, and he was absolutely fine.
In his defense, Ted Cruz was not submitting to his will.
That's true. Yeah, good point.
But you mean because he was running against the Clintons in 2016?
So the last debate in 2016, he invited Paula Jones and
Jennifer Flowers.
Jennifer Flowers, and what's the other one?
Juanita Broderick.
Juanita Broderick, right?
She's the one that claims that Bill raped her.
Yes.
He remarkably consistent from the back in the day.
Yep. Somebody who's consistently said that Bill Clinton raped her when he was Attorney General of Arkansas, going way, way, way back. Trump brought them to the debate. This is a gloves off move. This is not the kind of thing that you do if you're going to be, this is not like John McCain going, ma'am, Barack Obama is a good man and a family man. Like this is not that kind of thing. What I find really weird about that is, I was at Fox Business at the time. The Miami Herald had broken the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, but it hadn't reached national recognition yet. Like you kind of you had to keep your eye posted for it. It wasn't common knowledge yet. So I wanted to do my due diligence in case we covered it on the show. So I did some research on it. And at the time, what I found was that there was a flight log. There were, I think, 3 flight logs of Bill Clinton going on the Lolita Express. It did not say where it went to. It just said that he had been on Jeffrey Epstein's private plane 3 times and had dismissed his Secret Service agents to spend time with their family during those instances. I think he probably went to the sex island and fucked some underage girls, is my guess. There are some inferential leaps that I'm making, but there's a paper trail connecting him to Jeffrey Epstein and to the island, to a plane flight. There are other places he could have gone. I think Epstein had a ranch. There's some other, could have been he went to random events, but given the omission from all parties involved, that seems to me to be a likely scenario.
And there was some evidence of him fooling around with his interns who were significantly younger than him.
There was something of a pattern.
That he's a legendary horn dog who's fucked anything that's moved his entire life. Yeah, that's pretty well documented.
Every girl, woman, monkey, and dog between Little Rock and Washington at some point.
People forget lesser known Bill Clinton sex scandals. He had the state troopers run his hose when he was the governor of Arkansas.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Like when they needed a ride from their house to the governor's mansion or from the governor's mansion back to their house. He just had the state troopers run them.
This was pre-Uber, so you would just use the troopers. With Trump, the trail was not there. With Trump, the evidence at the time was that Jeffrey Epstein had 2 or 3 of Trump's numbers. So they had some kind of contact, but there was no evidence that he'd gone to the island. Anyway, circling back, I found that very, very, very weird that there was evidence that Bill Clinton had been buddies with Jeffrey Epstein and ridden on his plane, and that Trump didn't feel like bringing that up. That struck me as a mutually assured destruction type thing, that Trump would be willing to bring Juanita Broderick and say, yes, the woman I'm running against, her husband is a literal rapist. He's willing to go that far, but he's not willing to go also probably diddled girls because he was buddies with Jeffrey Epstein and rode on his plane 3 times. The fact that he didn't bring that stuff up, I found very odd. And the fact that no one seemed to want to implicate Trump from the Clinton campaign told me that was some kind of mutually assured destruction. That's what gives me a little bit of pause. The other bit of pause, again, this is the 20% Bayesian reasoning part. The other bit of pause is I go, okay, if there were an instance where very powerful people wanted to kill someone, I think this is it. So if he did kill himself, I kind of have to go, I guess they just never kill anybody, which that's good. Glad we don't live in a world where billionaires want to murder anybody. But this would have been the time to do it. So I side with Jen on this. I side with the Justice Department. I think Pam Bondi, by the way, one of the things floating around is the Pam Bondi telling on, I think, Brett Baer, like I've got the Epstein list in front of me. That seems damning unless you look at it in light of political bluster, where she was probably just saying blustery bullshit for attention and political aims.
It's also not what she said.
Yeah.
Like she said that it's on my desk, as in like I have the files, but she wasn't saying I have the list. I've seen the list. She was actually saying like I haven't looked at it yet, but I have the information.
That's what she's saying now.
Files and the RFK files and the JFK file. This was in
I think that the immediate question precipitating it from Brett Baer was the Epstein list, though, that she was responding to. Now, granted, it is ambiguous, and she's now redefining it that way. And I agree. I think that likelihood that she literally had a black book of blackmailed characters that Epstein fucked versus she said stuff that sounded strong and blustery that would make the administration look good and then had to walk it back or be ambiguous. The latter makes more sense. So,
I went down the rabbit hole for not long, but I did kind of look at like where is the origination of this idea that there even was a list. And it seems like the sources are Dan Bongino and Kash Patel and other bullshit artists. So it's like we might also be looking for a thing that has never existed, because why would this person put any of this on paper? It doesn't even make sense. So there's that too.
I mean, it would make sense for Epstein to have blackmail. Like if he's putting himself in these clearly illegal positions and then he entraps powerful people to help him, it would make sense. I mean, when he previously got in trouble with the law for something like this, I don't remember the exact charge. I don't think it was
the South Florida charges. It
was the South. Do you recall what those were, Justin? They were like tangential to this, but he didn't get convicted as a rapist.
he was rung up on charges for bringing in underage women.
Yeah.
And, him and Ghislaine. And then he got a sweetheart deal.
He did, and the deal was, if you remember this, his deal was he could serve his prison sentence at home except on weekends when he was allowed to work from prison. So he would stay at his mansion. And then I think it was either during the week and he'd go home on weekends or vice versa. He would stay at his mansion, and then he would, on his own reconnaissance, go to the prison, check in, would bring a laptop so he could work with him, would stay there, and then would go home. Like, it was pretty, if you're going to go to prison on sex charges with minors, that's a pretty good deal, and probably happened because he got shielded by the rich and the powerful. So I could see a situation where he would keep dirt on them as a insurance policy.
Well, yeah, if we're going to put on the tinfoil hat now, because this is the other the other theory is that he got the sweetheart deal because he was involved with intelligence agencies.
Which intelligence?
I think,
could it be CIA? The Jews?
Oh, Jesus. I didn't say that. Send your emails to Justin Robert Young.
That's around. No, that he was a Masoud thing. I'm shocked
CIA,
that hasn't crossed
Masoud.
your radar.
No, it has crossed my radar. And this is the thing. Like, I have no way to know, especially with like intelligence stuff, but that is something that people have said, that he's an intelligence asset.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
All right. So number one, I agree with both of you. The idea that there is a list of like that Jeffrey Epstein was an underage pimp, right? That was his through line. That was his worth to the world. He was connected to the rich and powerful because
like he's a madam or something.
Yeah, that he was finding young girls that he would traffic to powerful people. That, to me, is a distillation that gets us closer to the weird Pizzagate, Eyes Wide Shut. Like there's a organization of pedophiles that run the world and they do spirit cooking, and like that's a different element of this that obviously has supercharged the conspiracy theory elements, but I don't think is particularly compelling to me. Here's what we know. We know that Jeffrey Epstein was a private banking financier that had a very rapid run to the top in the early 80s. He was a math teacher before that. And then I think he left Bear Stearns and within like a year had a very thriving private practice that almost exclusively dealt with super high net worth individuals. He lived between the Upper West Side and West Palm Beach, which is going to put him almost just by dint of how many billionaires do that and are at the same places in the same social circles as people like Donald Trump, the current president of the United States. And that while he was doing that in the 80s and 90s, him and Ghislaine Maxwell were sourcing young women who they then had recruit other young women to give both of them massages that would elevate into oftentimes elaborate sexual things. And nobody was checking IDs, right? That there were underage girls that were involved. The interesting stuff to me comes in with that first conviction that ends in a sweetheart deal, where Acosta, the Miami attorney, state attorney that brought that case, says that there was word from on high that Epstein was not to go to prison for a significant period of time. And then the question of exactly how did he get this rich, this connected, and this powerful from the position that he was in before. If I am to indulge into things that I cannot know, I would say, there's a dude who spends a lot of his time delving into this kind of stuff that I find to be compelling, and that is Mike Benz, B-E-N-Z, if you want to dig into your own rabbit hole on this. But his point is, one of those high net worth individuals in the early 80s was a man by the name of Khashoggi, who was the arms dealer at the center of Iran-Contra. And that he might have been involved specifically with the CIA as somebody that was moving money hither and yon, which would mean that his connection to the rich and powerful is not that he was able to find teenagers at the West Palm Beach Mall, but rather that he was somebody that knew how to move money back and forth between some of the most sensitive and powerful people in the world. So what I would like to see is not a Department of Justice airing of what they know about Jeff Epstein. I would like to see a CIA unveiling of what they know about Jeff Epstein. And that is what I would like clarity on. The fact that he either killed himself or didn't kill himself. Look, I've made plenty of jokes about how the Queen of England had Jeffrey Epstein killed. So I've gotten, I'm sure that I am a part in some minuscule way of playing this up. If you were to really pin me down and say, what is the Occam's razor on it? Yeah, a guy who lived a life of luxury, used to nubile orgies of questionable age, facing the rest of his life in prison, might want to off himself. That would seem to check possibly more credibly than a crooked toothed henchman of the crown strangling him.
What did you saw that we got 45 seconds in 11:59 p.m. That's when the timestamp is. If you just slip in and cock his neck right out there, and then we get the jewels from Prince Andrew.
Exactly. So it makes sense. I don't think that the thing that he did the most, or did specifically, even on purpose, was to traffic young women to important people. I think that was what he did on his off time.
Like recreationally.
There's a hobby.
I think, I mean, if you look at the people that were the most frequented on the island weren't politicians. They were scientists, because he was somebody who was a gigantic philanthropist for science. And so he would go meet these very famous scientists.
Steven Pinker would hang out.
And then say, hey,
also snores, by the way.
Then you would say, hey, come down to the island. And guess what scientists often don't have tremendous access to their entire life? Young pussy. And he fucking delivered it by the fucking barrelful. So it's like, that makes a lot more sense. It's why the Donald Trump thing never made a lot of sense to me. It's like, oh yeah, because that's what Donald Trump was really, really, really poor for. Finding young women to have sex with when he ran a teen beauty pageant. Like, if anything, if he fucked underage girls, he did it by his own pipeline. He created his own sourcing method to find that. So yeah, the DOJ stuff is not what I would find the most interesting. What I would really find the most interesting is what the CIA knows about him and how he might have been involved in the CIA. Because I think the phone call that comes down that gets him the sweetheart deal initially, that's CIA. It's not FBI and it's not DOJ.
I agree with that.
Wait, so do we think he got CIA funding?
I think he is connected on, well, I'll put it this way. Of all the people that the CIA has a file on, whether or not he was explicitly directed or handled by the CIA, or he was directed to do things by the CIA, I'll bet you they got a folder on him.
Yeah,
and I'll bet you that folder is real interesting. I'll bet you that folder is a real page turner. So yeah, that's what if I were to say what I think happened, I think he was a money mover and quite possibly adjacent to arms dealers. And that's how he comes into contact with some of the most powerful people. And that's why he is nigh on untouchable, not because he has video of Bill Clinton slamming a 15-year-old.
Here's where your theory falls apart, though. That would have been under Reagan, and he was a good guy.
Yep.
I'm just baiting Jed.
I didn't take the bait.
Good job.
I just
Good job.
Sat here like a not hungry fish.
Just like I did when some underage young woman tried to serve me a drink on Epstein's Island.
Epstein.
That's what I called him. I didn't like him. Thought he was an asshole.
Fucking Epstein over here. Dershowitz slapping his leg. Kill him. My hour-long set on Epstein Island. the sad unlisted video on Heaton's YouTube channel.
I'm there on the plane, like surrounded by underage women. I'm like, shut up. I have to come up with jokes about the Caribbean. All right, I've got some jokes about beaches. Ow. Okay, no, I'll do a little. People like it when I got teeth. They like it when I got teeth. I'll make fun of the beach stuff. They've heard my beach stuff. They're going to like that. Yeah.
God, that would be great to have maybe like a Tim Dillon, one of these like edgy kind of comics of the moment that often border on politics, to have him do an hour on Epstein's Island. Because that's got to be on Airbnb now, right? Like what the hell is Epstein's Island up to these days?
That would be
It's
cool.
still an island in the Bahamas. Like, I'm sure it's great.
I think we should sink it.
If you could rent out Epstein's Island as an Airbnb, would you?
Yes. Am I keeping the money from it? Yes.
Red hot
Thanks,
second.
Jen.
We should have a We're Not Wrong retreat on Epstein's Island. Yeah. We could write it off. It'd be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Look into it, producer. Make it happen.
Yeah. Well, the only way that we're going to do it is patreon.com/We're Not Wrong. We get more and more people onto our Patreon. And you get something for your money. Bonus episode.
And an invite to the island.
And look, the first invites are going out to the highest donors for the rent.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now listen,
Freebies.
it's the same.
Yeah, freeloaders don't get to come to the island.
It's been 12 years. So, okay, let's just move on.
Jesus. This week, we'll be talking about the TSA allowing travelers to keep their shoes on at some airports and whether or not we are seeing a meaningful receding of the security that came after 9/11.
Step one, shoes.
Episode.
Step two, bring back Tamagotchis. I'm here for this.
I don't know what a Tamagotchi is.
Oh my God. Move on, Justin.
Fuck you. You don't know
Someone
what a
has to
Tamagotchi
tell.
is. You don't know what a Tamagotchi is? That was your era.
Yeah.
My era? What am I? A boomer? Like, what does that mean?
No.
Are you calling me old?
No,
No,
saying
just
you're
say
my
you
age.
peaked in high school.
Oh, Jesus.
I don't know what you're saying.
You never had those little like keychain robots? You had to kind of like feed it. It was kind of like
It was a virtual pet.
Oh, yeah, those dumb pets that nerds had. Yeah, I know I had one of those.
Okay.
Yeah, not my thing.
Okay. All right.
Love you, Andrew.
Tucker Carlson released a remote interview with Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian. Don't know how to pronounce his name. During the 28-minute conversation, the president accused Israel of launching a failed assassination against him during last month's 12-day conflict, claiming Israeli intelligence targeted a meeting he was attending. He also expressed openness to restarting nuclear negotiations with the United States, conditioned on rebuilding trust after the recent bombings. The president denied interest in developing nuclear weapons, attributing the fears to Israeli misinformation. Carlson framed the exchange as giving voice to the other side, avoiding hard questions about Iran's nuclear capabilities. Critics argue the interview served as a platform for unchallenged Iranian messaging. Andrew Heaton, you are the CEO of a media company. Mm-hmm. Is it fair to interview the Iranian president?
Yes, of course it fucking is. I don't like any of this platforming bullshit. And I take the position that I want to live north of the wall with the other wildlings. And that means that I don't want to have my information restricted to me in my best interest, which is what people are essentially saying when they criticize this sort of thing, that there ought to be self-censorship or some kind of professional censorship that happens to stop people like me from being able to get more information to make our own decisions. I like thinking for myself. I want to live in a country full of people that are thinking for themselves. I want to live with the wildlings. And the downside of that is there's going to be misinformation and there's going to be bad information and bad takes. And I'm fine with that. I'm willing to pay that price to be able to have unfiltered access to information so I can make up my own mind about stuff. Insofar as Iran goes, I want to know what they're saying. I think that's invaluable information to see what the president of Iran is saying. He's a fucking politician, so I don't know that I'm going to buy it, but I want to hear what I want to hear what he thinks is a priority to get out there. That is very useful information to me. The things that I read through the transcript, I didn't watch it, but I read through the transcript. The things that he comes back to repeatedly are he really doesn't want to fight with America, and he wants America to understand, this is him, he wants America to understand this is all Netanyahu. Netanyahu's trying to poison our relationship. Our problem is with Netanyahu. It's not with America. That's a very useful thing for us to know as Americans that, like, I don't know, the president of Iran doesn't seem to want to fight us very much. And he might be duplicitous. He might be lying, all that stuff, but it's useful information to me. Insofar as Tucker Carlson went, I don't think people who've not done interviews can quite understand how difficult it is to do actual hardball interviews. I am very much a softie. I don't like fighting people. I don't do hardball interviews. It would be really difficult for me to actually do an interview with the president of Iran if it were available to me. The only thing that I wish he'd focused more on is I wish he'd asked about the 60% enrichment threshold. That to me is a relevant question. And I think probably the president of Iran would have said, look, we already told everybody we're using it because we want to have nuclear submarines, which is perfectly reasonable under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. This is all above board. That's fine. But I would like him to clarify why. And all that being said, though, no, I think that this is good information. And the whole, like, you shouldn't hear the perspective of the people we might invade is just utter bullshit.
Jen, on the other side of it, even if it's okay to do the interview, or it is acceptable to do the interview, is there in a remote setting an obligation to get some of those questions that Heaton mentioned? Is it a reputational damage if it's too much of a softball?
If it were too much of a softball, maybe, but that isn't what I saw. Like, I actually think Tucker did a really good job, and I'm not a Tucker fan. I'm sure that'll shock people, but like, I actually think he did a good job with this interview. He asked the things that I wanted to ask, most notably, like, I think he got to the bottom of, does the Iranian president want to go to war with us? The answer is absolutely not. And he kept coming back to, our issue is Israel, over and over again. It was like, the issue is Israel. And I think it's also very useful to know that Iran is willing to negotiate. They kept saying, like, we were negotiating and then Israel bombed us. And so when Tucker asked, like, are you willing to come back to the table? They said yes, but we need some kind of assurances that Israel isn't going to go and bomb our people and assassinate people and take out entire apartment buildings in doing so. I mean, he said they've committed war crimes. And quite frankly, I agree with the man, and I can understand his perspective in that. And so when we do get the inevitable news story of Iran's refusing to negotiate, we need to go to war with them, I'm going to understand a little bit better what their rationale is, because the last time they were at the table with us, we allowed our ally to bomb them. So I think it's useful to see things from the other people's perspective. And Tucker did put out a 2-minute explanation of why he was even doing the interview in the first place, in which he said that if the American people are funding and participating in something, in this case, a war with Iran, we should have as much information about it as possible. And so I'm actually really grateful that he did this. I didn't think that there were a bunch of softballs. I think we've had this conversation on the air. I don't think the 60% is that big of a deal. So I wasn't upset that there wasn't a question about it. I got the answers that I was looking for from the interview. And this was an interview I wasn't expecting to find. So not only do I think that it's good that he did this, I think he did a good job, and he did us a service in locking down the interview. He also said that he's been trying for months to get Netanyahu on his program, and he's not saying yes so far. So, he's trying to do the interview.
I would love to watch Netanyahu talk to Tucker. That would be a really good interview.
Oh my God.
It would be so good.
What a battle of the blowhards. Jesus Christ.
True, but you know what? I like that, like what Tucker did to Ted Cruz. Like, Tucker is not shying away from putting these people in the hot seat. And that's what I want to see.
Ever.
I don't think it was that dumb. I think that he was pointing out that Ted Cruz doesn't know shit about Iran, and yet he wants to bomb the place. I think that it was useful. And my bigger point, whether you like the questions or not, it wasn't a bunch of softballs. And I think we need to have more journalists who are willing to sit down with these people and not try and be their best friends, because you have to imagine that Ted Cruz walked out of there being like, this guy's kind of a dick. And while Tucker was polite to the president of Iran, I didn't think that those were softball questions. And so I would like to see, God, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I would like to see more journalists behave like Tucker Carlson, because I think he's getting interviews that just the fact that he did it didn't even matter what he asked. The fact that he did it, he knew he was going to take shit for, and he did it anyway. And I think that that's what I want to see in journalism. And I think that's what we need a lot more of in these times.
I agree that there should be no penalty in him taking the interview. I agree that he should be credited as being somebody who will do it and is understanding to take the reputational hit by some people that he would quote unquote platform it. Because I agree with Heaton that the platforming argument is stupid. I disagree that it was a substantive interview. It was almost beat by beat the kind of things that you would understand that Iran has already tried to get out there in terms of their own talking points, and he didn't sway from them at all. He also didn't, we didn't even touch on the idea that the Iranian president is about as powerful as the fucking mailman is in terms of making international decisions for that country. This is an autocracy and a theocracy for which the president is the errand boy for, at most. This was basically an interview with a press secretary that was specifically fashioned for an American audience. And it is discordant with what the Iranians are telling their own people in videos that you can download. And if you, have a way to bypass the language barrier, you can understand. The idea that he is able to get away with saying like, oh no, death to America. It's just, it's kind of a phrase. It's just kind of a thing that's said, that's laughable to me. I defended Tucker when he went to Moscow and interviewed Putin. And I defended the fact that I didn't like, if people wanted more of a confrontational interview from that point of view, then I would encourage them to go to Moscow and sit in front of Vladimir Putin and talk shit and see how exactly safe you feel. And I could understand. I even wrote off his stupid propaganda videos about how amazing the Russian supermarkets were because I'm like, look, if you and
that was very eye rolling when that happened. Yeah.
It's like, look, if you and your crew are in Moscow, your job as their boss, and he is now the president and CEO of his own media company. So
just like me.
Yeah. All stuff ends with him. Like, I think do what you need to do to get your people home, even if it means kind of humiliating yourself about how amazing these fish look. That being said, he didn't have those constraints here. If he wanted to do an interview that was by and large baseline and then say, hey, what about proxy warfare? What is Iran's plan on proxy warfare going forward? I think that would have been fair. And maybe it would have fucked the interview.
I wasn't worried about
put it at the end.
I wasn't worried about sleeper agents. I'm not worried about sleeper agents right now, but like the proxy warfare is real. Like they are funding Hezbollah and stuff. And like it wasn't where I would have gone. Yeah.
So I do think that it was a softball. I do think that he, and I'm not willing to necessarily go down the road of like, well, he's making Qatari money. And so the Qataris this is the price of taking money from them, is that you have to do PR for Iran every once in a while. I'll even give him the most pure motivations that I could imagine, which is that he wants to establish himself as the place where dangerous interviews that nobody else will take happens. And that's his brand. He wants that brand to be a place where dangerous conversations and thinkers and movers and shakers on the modern world will come and say what they want to say. I'm fine with that. But also, I think the shingle out front of the door is, look, I let the Iranian president in the middle of an active war, say whatever he wanted. And I didn't really press anything in terms of the American interest.
So, there's two ways to go about these interviews where you can go super, super hard and ensure that you never get another one again. Like you said, like the president of Iran is not the big fish. You would want to get the supreme leader. Mm-hmm. And if he's ever going to have a chance at that, going super, super hard, I don't think is the strategy. Like I remember when, remember the comedian Lee Camp? He got one chance to go on Fox News and he went in there and called them a propaganda factory. It's one of my favorite clips of all time, but he was never invited back on there. And so it's like, you kind of have to walk that line. And when I look at what Tucker did, he got the president to establish that we are not considered the enemy of Iran. It seemed pretty clear that Israel is, but like the Americans, they're not trying to go to war with us. And when he said the interview was in like 2 weeks, within 2 weeks of the bombings happening. I think that was important to establish. And so if his goal was to find out, are you interested in a war with us or not? I think he accomplished that. And then when I heard the interview, like that was my biggest question. So while you're absolutely right that there were other questions that could be asked, he absolutely could have gone further, especially with the proxy war stuff. Yeah, there's an opening for that. But because he didn't go full asshole on this, he might be able to get a follow-up.
I'll tell you, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I do think that there has been a poisoning of the well in the world of journalism as it has tilted more toward television and less toward print, where things can be a little bit more, I think you have more of a free range. You have more of a free range in terms of time. You have more of a free range in terms of being able to print stuff, and tone can be whatever it needs to be on the page. But television invites car crash, and television invites a lot of these emotions. And what we've seen specifically since Trump, but I would argue this really happened during Bush and Obama too, was to do a tough interview meant humiliating a person in front of you or screaming over them because you need to make sure that you are not part of the bad, right? And you cannot allow somebody to say what they want to say. You have to interject things over top of them, which I think is bad, objectively bad. I do think that in a scenario like this, I understand that you do want to climb the ladder. You do source management, even if it's the Iranian fucking the mullahs, like it is real, and you want to make sure that you have the ability to access them. That being said, my theory of the case, if I were in the room with Tucker, I would say, if you have 8 questions, which is about what he had, I forget what the exact number is, but it's like, it was a half-hour interview. It was a half-hour interview, and it was delayed because of the translation. 2 of them got to be stiff. Like you can do 6 that are fact setting, and then 2 of them got to be things that you don't have to be a dick about it, but you got to ask, what is the state of Quds Force right now? Like, and even if he denies it, you're allowing them the ability to say, "Oh, the existence of proxy warfare is another Israeli lie," and blah blah blah. That's fine. You can let him say the answer to it, but I do think you need to have respectfully stated, strongly worded questions, because if you give up that, then I do think that's where on the interview has to have a little bit of teeth. That's where I would say the line is.
I didn't see an absence of teeth. I mean, maybe I'm a little sensitive to this because I know that you two have experienced it too, where it's like you do a whole episode on something and then you get shit on for the things you didn't do. So I'm looking at the interview that was actually done, and he said, "Are you pursuing a nuclear weapon? Like, are you willing to negotiate?" Like, these are questions that I think were important and needed to be answered. So the fact that like there was stuff missing from this 27-minute interview, of course there was, but the questions that he actually got answered, I was grateful to get those directly from the president of Iran. I think he went to the heart of what the issue was in those 2 weeks, which was, do you want to go to war with us? Are you pursuing a nuclear weapon? And he did ask, like, you know, I know the answer was stupid, but he did ask, you know, your people are chanting death to America. Like, how are we supposed to feel about that? That's an awkward question for someone to have to answer. So I don't feel like he did a bad job with the 8 questions that he had. Is there more to be asked? Absolutely. But he left the door open by not being an asshole to maybe get the chance to ask those in the future. So I'm judging him on the interview I actually heard, and I think he did just fine.
I guess that's the thing is, to me, I don't think that a question, and understood, those are good questions. I think that has been part of the public record from what the Iranian president has said previously. Now, obviously that didn't get out as much as people who aren't paying as close of attention to it. And so this is an ability for him to speak specifically to the right flank of the country, for whom Tucker Carlson has the vast majority of his audience. There is certainly especially among Tucker Carlson's audience, that is very excited and welcome to hear an argument that is very critical of Israel. So I think he found an audience for that specific talking point. I don't know. I don't think that you're a dick. I don't think that you're an asshole if you advance things beyond stuff that they have already said publicly. And everything he said in that interview, he's already said publicly.
So I'll agree with that, but we're also wonks on this stuff. Like, we're paying attention to a level that I'm not sure that Tucker Carlson's audience is. And like, I remember 2008 when it was the Republicans who were singing along with John McCain, bomb, bomb, bomb Iran. So while it might not be the first time that we've heard those things, I think there's a really good chance that Tucker's audience, this might have been the first time, and then they can go to their own kitchen tables and be like, listen, I heard it from the Iranian president himself. So while it might seem repetitive to us, it's not repetitive to his audience, and that's the audience he serves.
I think Tucker knows better, though. That's my thing. And I'm looking at it from the media perspective of, like, I'll put it this way. I would not be shocked if all those questions were worked out either with an intermediary or the Iranian president's office himself, that he agreed to preset questions. And it felt like that to me.
You can feel that way.
Yeah.
It's fair.
Especially when it comes after him, just having this blowhard off with Ted Cruz, where he's asking, how many Mossad agents can dance on the head of a pin, and it puts out the clip beforehand. So it's like he's really, really comfortable being super fucking aggressive on one side, and then he's like, oh, Mr. President, thank you so much.
Yeah, but both of those interviews had an agenda, and it's an anti-war agenda. So where he is trying to get a point across, he was showing that Ted Cruz didn't know things about the country that he wanted to overthrow. And on the other hand, he's showing that the Iranian president is not trying to start a war with us. And so if you look at it from that way, it kind of made sense why he did it the way that he did it. He would be more pissed off with Ted Cruz because Ted Cruz is the one who's trying to take us to another forever war in the Middle East. So I kind of get the asshole from Tucker Carlson on that one. And honestly, fuck Ted Cruz. It was really satisfying to watch.
Ted Cruz is kind of a dick, whereas the president of Iran, I don't want to go into it, but I actually hung out with him one time. It was an exclusive event that I was doing. It was kind of a vacation. It was sort of a working vacation that I was doing. And you know what? He doesn't snore. Lovely, lovely guy to hang out at a pool with. His translator, Akmar, swell dude. So maybe he's just a nice guy to interview, The
funniest part about this is that Heaton has actually hung out with Ted Cruz.
I actually have hung out with Ted Cruz.
Nice guy.
I did. Yeah. Because what's okay. I was doing stand-up for a political action committee. It was in Florida. It was at the Breakers, which is an extremely expensive hotel
in Palm Beach.
In Palm Beach. And I did stand up. It was terrifying because it was in a dome. And I realized that sounds like, why would that be terrifying to people? Here's why it's terrifying to people. You've got an audience that's probably median age 60. So they're not like belly laughers to begin with, but domes suck up all of the sound. So I, as a comic, cannot hear any of the feedback going on. Normally I can when I'm doing stand up. I can kind of go, okay, the audience likes these kind of jokes. It doesn't like these kind of jokes. I could not hear any feedback whatsoever. So I'm interpreting it as I have completely bombed in front of this audience. Turns out, no, or at least they told me I did a good job. At the time, the governor of Indiana, a man named Michael Pence, came up to tell me I was very funny. He gave a speech later that was actually really good about states' rights and the laboratory of democracy and how it's awesome if Vermont is doing progressive things and Indiana's doing conservative things, because that's how policies are reached in this country from the ground. I actually was quite taken with him at the time. And then I smoked a cigar with Ted Cruz. And it was fine. It was fine. Like we didn't particularly bond or anything, but we went outside and smoked a cigar.
Wow. Important
that's not
people.
a bit.
Not a bit. Not a bit.
Well, that's cool.
And there was a television screen in the mirror in my bathroom.
Oh,
I will say that
if you want to, if you're at the Breakers, you can watch TV in the shower.
Oh yeah.
And not by putting your laptop on the toilet like I usually do. It was built in. I couldn't get it to work, but just knowing that it could have worked was amazing.
I went to a hotel once. I think it was in Biloxi, Mississippi. And for some reason, I think it was because we were staying there for one day. They put us in the penthouse and they had a TV like in the bathtub. And so I was able to take a bath. They even gave you the bubbles and everything. And I watched Sex in the City in that bathtub and like did not see Biloxi at all because I just never left the bathtub. It was glorious.
You missed
Every
out on
bathtub
Biloxi?
should have a television. I did. Yeah. I think
Why were you in Biloxi?
Do they have like the casinos and stuff?
Yes.
Am I thinking of the right city?
Yeah.
Yeah. We were just driving through. So that's why we were there for one night. And we checked into this casino and they were like, you want the penthouse? And I'm like, fuck yeah, I want the penthouse. And so, yeah, never went to the casino,
Jen.
never spent any money.
Biloxi is the Paris of South Central Eastern Mississippi.
I mean, I enjoyed it. This is a happy story. Not that I ever left my room, but yeah, TVs and bathtubs. We should make that standard.
Yeah. You want to know what? That's my platform when I run for president in 28. A TV in every bathtub.
My platform is I will fix the printers. That's it. That's it. I'm going to fix the printers.
I literally was
finally
trying to print out this shit for this, and I had another fucking like back and forth. Like it tells me it prints and it doesn't print, and I'm like, I can't believe we got to AI fuck buddies before we got to fixing the fucking printers.
Right.
Like we've been working on this shit since the fucking 60s.
100%.
We're not wrongpod at gmail.com. That's where you can write the show. Hey, moron, writes Heaton. Praxis is what exploded, not Kitomer.
Oh my God, you're right. Jesus, I've confused the Kittimer Accords with Praxis. I apologize to Justin, to Jen, to my family, and to anyone who's ever gone to a Star Trek convention. I let you down. I'm sorry.
To everyone else who got the bicycle thief joke, of which there were many, and they were very excited to email in or comment on the Patreon. There is a meme of the hijacker from Captain Phillips saying, I'm the one who gets the jokes now. So apparently it was a great moment for people who are not normally in on pop culture, but are aware of iconic early Italian cinema. On American Pride. Hell yeah, writes, as a non-American, everything I've ever learned about America besides this show has been against my will. Sucks to suck, bro. What am I going to say?
Justin.
One of my friends got into, he got into like the Aaron Sorkin equivalent of Denmark or the Netherlands a few years ago, where he likes to watch their political thrillers. And they're really funny because it's just a series of like extremely low stakes coalitional governments where like, oh God, the center left party is dropping us to combine with the center left party. Like, it's just like, I don't know. It's cute.
Imprint on Demand writes, my long-going theory on how people view government's roles and responsibilities comes from the first place that they visit as a young adult. I left the country at 19 years old to drop off aid supplies in Haiti and watch as government officials promptly put the medicine, school supplies, and computers meant for the local students into the backs of their cars, probably to be sold elsewhere. This made me think of government as a high-powered mafia that we pay protection money to, i.e. libertarian. My friends who holiday in Western Europe see a world that if we just taxed a little more, we could have a country with free healthcare and cute walkable streets. The cynics of this theory are the Bosnian bros, the boys who end up in basically corrupt Eastern European countries where the bribes, beer, and babes are all reasonably priced. It's all bullshit, but this beer is real and that's what matters.
I mean, there's something to that because the first time I left the country, I don't know if it was, I may have been to Mexico, but the first time I spent time outside the United States is when I lived in Bonn, Germany. And I loved the walkable streets and the trains and the healthcare. And it did shape my view on things because I came home and I was like, why don't we have these things? So yeah, it shaped me. I don't think this is wrong.
You know, I heard a tangential to this. I had a really interesting theory. A listener messaged me a few months ago on there might be a kind of fundamental flavor difference between the role of government for people that live in the suburbs versus live in inner cities. And I thought the reasoning was great. So like when I lived in New York City, you were dealing with externalities so much more. If I'm living in my apartment and I'm sharing walls with other people and I'm smoking, it's going to bug them because they're going to smell it. If I'm playing loud music, it's going to bug them because they're going to hear it. If I have a house in the suburbs, fuck you. What is your problem? I'm smoking cigarettes in my own house. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm listening to music in my own house. I'm not hurting anybody. So the role of like, where is my domain versus what is the common good is kind of different from those two. I thought there might be something to it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Mm-hmm. I'm the email writer, boo-boo, writes, I'm sure that you all know that clip from the newsroom that goes viral every so often. Well, my response to Justin's love of American exceptionalism because we have liberty is a clip of that clip. America is so star-spangled awesome that we're the only ones who have freedom, says Jeff Daniels in this clip posted by the most annoying fucking people on the planet, I add editorially. Canada has freedom. Japan has freedom. The UK, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, Australia, Belgium has freedom. 207 sovereign states in the world. Like 180 of them you are free enough to podcast from. And I would like to respond to this Sorkonian brain broken lib that I would be committing a crime. Just sending the memes that I've sent over the past 2 months in Jen's beloved Germany about Kanye West's new single. That would be illegal. I would face legal repercussions for the amount of jokes that I have made about Kanye's Heil Hitler single to my friends, because that is illegal there. Now, I'm not saying that baseline freedom does not exist in Western Europe or much of the developed world. Of course it does. But America is where freedom goes to freedom. And I very much appreciate it. I appreciate the economic engine that is built on top of it. And I appreciate that we have the ability to live the life that we do. And if anybody is like, oh, well, you know, it's roughly equivalent, that's sure. Okay, fine. I would say that the package we have built here, though imperfect, is one that by the scoreboard, i.e. migration numbers, seems to be working more than Americans by percentage are moving to other countries. And so that is what I would point to beyond the fucking shitty clip from a forgotten, awful show that is just the fact that that's become people's personality. We got a bunch of them, by the way, but that clip annoyed me when it fucking came out. It's just so fucking stupid.
I loved that clip.
Is that
that clip
of the newsroom?
Somebody told me to watch the newsroom, and I ducked out so quick on that one, like because the opening scene is
with that opening scene.
It's the hard hitting, pissed off news guy that's tired of the bullshit from the Republicans and the Democrats, and he's like, Republicans,
finally, a liberal newsman.
Yeah,
he's been searching for them for so long.
He again, this is the guy that's above the fray. His perspective is like, Republicans, you're pieces of shit. Like, and he has his monologue about all the stuff that you'd think about Republicans. He's like, Democrats, if you're so smart, why do you keep losing? And I'm like, wow, what an even-handed, nonpartisan approach of, hey, smart team, be better at communicating your good ideas. Hey, dumb team, quit being I was like, I'm out. I don't want to deal with this.
This is Sorkin's whole thing. Sorkin's whole thing is like, okay, the Republican character is evil, and then the Democratic character talks well enough that he goes, well, maybe I'll agree to only saw the children's legs off. And then the fucking orchestral swell plays and they shake hands, and that's bipartisan. And like, I can understand why the West Wing is reviled by the progressives in the same way that it is frustrating to conservatives. I do love his dialogue. Also a fellow Syracuse. I don't know if he graduated, but every time that I partied in a basement at Syracuse, I always wondered, did Sorkin do coke here?
I mean, the show, it only lasted a season for a reason. It wasn't very good. But the point, I think, of the email, going back to your comments, Justin, is like, it's kind of like your definition of freedom. So here in the United States, are you free to some anti-Semitic or means about an anti-Semitic racist? Like, sure, great. But in Germany, I was free to quit my job because I knew that I could get health care. You know, it's like you're not going to have that yanked away from you because you're not employed by some corporation. So it's like, I find that the freedom that I get in Europe, the economic freedom, I find that more valuable than being able to share Kanye memes. So I I think we have to look at our
Your
definition.
economic freedom in America seems to be pretty fucking good right now.
Well, I'm married to someone who works for a giant multinational corporation, and that's how we have our healthcare. If I had to buy my own Obamacare, I mean, I could do that now, but before 2010, that was almost impossible to do. And when I did buy my own insurance, it wasn't required to cover anything. So, and we're heading back in that direction. We have people that are going to get kicked off of their Medicaid now. I've been reading the Big Beautiful Bill. And one of their ways of dealing with the work requirement thing. So basically you can get Medicaid if you work 20 hours a week with some exceptions. They've limited those exceptions, by the way. So now if you're homeless or a veteran, like you can lose your Medicaid. You weren't able to before. But when it comes to these work requirements, it also used to be the case that you wouldn't lose your Medicaid if there were no jobs available in your state. They took that away. So now there's a work requirement, but if there's no jobs available, you can still have your healthcare taken away from you. Like that's absolutely terrifying. And that is not something that happens in some of these countries that we're shitting on. So when I talk about economic freedom, like that's what I'm talking about. We have tied our healthcare to being subservient to some boss. And that doesn't happen other places. And so when I think about what I value the Kanye memes less than I value my ability to go to the doctor and not go bankrupt that they have in other countries. Okay. It's scary to be here. So
yeah,
it's just definition of freedom.
And also note that Scandinavia is more economically free than we are in terms of regulations. We are more regulated as our economy than Scandinavia is. The German financial sector is less regulated than the United States is. And our healthcare sector, for all of the ills that it has, is incredibly regulated. So there are a lot of countries over there that are actually more economically free than we are. But I will dip back to kind of the earlier premise of that particular question. We spent a lot of time talking about pride in the last episode. Just to touch on American exceptionalism quickly, the phrase American exceptionalism, I think, is frequently used as like we're exceptional in the sense that we're better. We're exceptional athletes. The original origin of American exceptionalism was the idea that America had been founded on philosophy, whereas all other countries up until that point had been founded on history. They had been a combination of power play dynasties and ethnicities. America was the first country to try to form itself around ideas, which is worth celebrating. And those ideas were good. Yeah. The ideas that America had that were kind of built into the DNA were, hey, everybody's been knuckling under lords and bishops for thousands of years. Maybe we don't need them. And that was a good position to take. I think there are a lot of people that want to keep lords and bishops. They just want to elect them, or they want to have them go through a meritocratic rise. And I do think that is something of a difference in mindset between that kind of wildling position of the United States and other countries. But it's not binary. It's not universal across the board. There are things that Europe is more free on. There are things that we're more free on. I'm pro-freedom wherever I find it.
Yeah, I agree. Yes. And I think the reason that it matters, the reason that I harp on this, and I don't want to be like, rah, rah, America's the best, is because when you think you are the best, you don't look at the other places and see what you can take from to improve your own country. So that's why I'm so against the idea that we are number one in everything when we're not, is because if you're number one, you have no incentive to improve. And we do have things to improve.
Of course we do. But I always pair it. It's like I am a pretty raw American exceptionalist on pretty much the most maximalist level that you could say. But I always pair that with the idea that we are relentlessly self-critical. We are relentlessly focused on our flaws. We are relentlessly pointing out things that are negative about our country and ways that we can fix it. And I do think that part of that is being a rich enough country that we can send our citizens around the world and we can constantly see different examples, that we've invented technologies that allow us to see things that happen in other places and care for people that are around the world, whether or not we have any kind of natural connection to them without the technology that we built to do so. So yeah, that's fucking awesome. And I like that. Rah, rah, America's the best. Tony Checker writes, I was surfing the dopamine wave created by Justin and Lord Uncle Heaton promoting the inclusion of Newfoundland in this fine or not, depending on your denotive preference, country, when my musical theater brain hit the brakes hard. Had Newfoundland been a part of the United States following 9/11, the airport in the town of Gander could not have been used for Operation Yellow Ribbon, since it would have been considered American airspace. And if that operation doesn't take place in Newfoundland, we don't get the musical Come From Away, which should have won Best Musical over Dear Evan Hansen.
Between this and the Kinnemer comment, I really feel like I'm dropping the ball this episode. I can't hold a candle to this. I appreciate your musical prowess there, listener. Congratulations.
Have you ever heard of Come From Away, Jen?
No.
I've heard it's a nice story. It's like there were a bunch of people got
a true story.
Yeah. A bunch of people got stranded. Jen, a bunch of people got stranded in Newfoundland after 9/11. And the people there in Newfoundland, I thought Nova Scotia as well, or maybe I'm confusing the two, were just wonderful. Like just went to the airport and like grabbed people and were like, we got a guest room. You want to stay with us? And just like took in all of these Americans that had been trapped there and very much integrated them into the town and made sure that they were okay. Incredibly neighborly gesture.
I love that. That sounds very Canadian. Gotta hand it to them. They're nice.
I know one of the songs. There's a song sung from the point of view of a pilot that includes 9/11 stuff, and because it's about 9/11.
These towers don't run.
My friend John sang it during karaoke because he's a musical theater nerd, but also because he knows that I always sing the 9/11 song during karaoke. And so I guess he just wanted to feel a part of things. And it was a good song. I don't know. I'd like to see the musical. Real email writing has never been tried. Hey, Heaton, love the list of all the countries you mentioned as communist. One thing, though, all those countries are dictatorships, which by definition doesn't make them communist, as in owned by the community. You mentioned understanding the true meaning of words earlier in the podcast, and I think that this is one that everyone gets wrong.
Well, I think that you're a lot more likely to win a terminological argument than you are an economic argument. So kudos to you there. Trying to focus on the definition of communism and the position that it's never really been tried is a much stronger position than looking at any empirical data of what we call communism. So first of all, to split hairs here, when you say communism used by Marx is the end goal. It's the withering of the state. So Marx thought that capitalism would happen, then the proletariat would rise and replace capitalism. And then during that transitionary period, we would get rid of class warfare because we would be emancipated and then we wouldn't have a government at all. So communism winds up being anarchy in that sense of the term. It's why the Soviets always said things like, we're about to achieve communism in 6 years. They would have said they were socialists rather than communists. They were the United Socialist Soviet Republic of the Soviet Union and so forth. The broader point to this is a dumb tautological way of looking at communism because it presumes that the world we are currently living in is what people that like liberal democracy and capitalism envision, and that all of the failed experiments that are myriad with playing around with authoritarian economics, which is my problem. I don't care whether you call it socialism or communism or state cap. I don't really care what you call it. It's the authoritarianism of it that bugs me. They have failed dismally when put up against our system. So you're looking at our system, warts and all, versus a hypothetical abstract thing that's never happened. Sure, the hypothetical abstract thing that's never happened is going to win, but that's not the fair comparison. The fair comparison is the crony capitalist bullshit we currently deal with that is not what I want in terms of a free market economy, but is still better than the communist bullshit that's not what you want. So when we pair up these things neck and neck of shitty fake socialism versus shitty fake capitalism works a lot better. That's the relevant example. And the 20th century is one gigantic experiment of freedom versus authoritarianism, and freedom works incredibly well. And the argument that we ought to be having now with a surfeit of empirical data is not whether market economies work. They work fantastic. It's to what extent should we raise taxes and redistribute the affluence of that market economy. That's the argument we ought to be having is, do we want to be on a spectrum of libertarian to Scandinavia, not Venezuela? We can throw Venezuela out of the works. That's something we don't need to be revisiting now.
I need a car, and it brings us home. I was just listening to a proper football, i.e. soccer podcast, and the English commentator was discussing his time covering the Club World Cup Championship, which is currently ongoing and being hosted here in the United States. One of the first things he said was that the public transportation was essentially non-existent and that you simply needed to have a car. That was the first serious thing he had to say about an international soccer tournament featuring the biggest clubs from around the world, which suggests how noticeable and noteworthy that was to him. I know Americans are obsessed with their cars. They're such a big part of how Americans wag our metaphorical dicks around. But is that really a good reason not to have alternatives? Yes. Moving on.
For Christ's sake. Like, I don't even feel like I need to go on one of my rants about this because it's just so obvious that not all of us are obsessed with their cars.
Get an Uber, Limey. Jesus Christ.
I would drive my car into the ocean today if I had a better way to get around.
To go to the fucking grocery store. Get out of here.
I'm using a bicycle lately, although they stole mine, so I have to use my shitty bicycle. But I would love to have safer options to get around than driving. I have to drive here. Like, this person is right. And when we have the World Cup and the Olympics coming, I do think it's going to be embarrassing to at least those of us who are aware of how the rest of the world is, that people are going to come here and be shocked that they have to drive everywhere. I also don't love the idea that people who don't regularly drive are going to have to rent cars and drive around our cities when they don't know what the fuck they're doing. So it's not safe for us either.
Economic boom.
Justin, you are such a troll.
Can I talk to the Limey for a minute?
Well, you can talk to the person that listened to the Limey's podcast.
Sure. We don't have a transit problem. We have an urban planning problem. And we have a circumstantial situation that is remarkably different than the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom is England's about the size of Oregon. Scotland's about the size of South Carolina, and Wales is the size of New Jersey. That's all of Britain. It's 3 states. The populations are much older, much more concentrated and dense because they developed primarily as villages and then towns that would build incrementally in very small, dense capacities, which is great for a public transportation network. If you have people that are already living in dense, walkable areas, public transit works really well for that. Now, I'm not for getting rid of public transit, but we do have a different circumstance. And the matter would be very different if Britain were the size of Siberia. You would find that that same level of public transit would be far more expensive and far less effective because people would be more spread out. I would be curious to what public transit looks like in the 90% of Canada that nobody lives in, because that would be a lot of what America looks like. I think it's like, 90% of Canada's population lives within an hour of Buffalo. It's a very, very concentrated population. If you get into like Alberta, I don't know, they probably have buses, but I doubt you that Alberta has like a massive Spanish style high speed rail network. It might, I could be wrong on this, but I think that part of it is just the fact that we have a different circumstance. And there are good arguments to be made that we're putting federal resources into roads. Why don't we put those same resources into trains? I'm fine with that. But it is a different starting position that we begin with. And I don't think it's just we like cars dick wagging. I think it's more of where we find ourselves.
I think it's prioritization, though, because if you look at like where the World Cup stadiums are, like I'm thinking of the Raiders Stadium, it's kind of at the end of the runway of McCarran Airport. Like, it's not far from the airport at all, but there is no easy public transportation way to get there. So it's like, even in these places where it is a city, it's not that sprawled out. Like the Strip and the airport are next to each other, and yet there is no train.
What city is this? I don't know what city
Las
this is.
Vegas.
No, but that's the worst example. You can actually walk to the stadium from where you're staying in Vegas.
All right, here's the next one. SoFi Stadium, Los Angeles. They're in the middle of building a train.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to drive to it. I want to go to an event at the Clippers Stadium, which is right down the street from SoFi. And like, I don't know how to get there. I'm going to have to drive. They're going to charge me $40 for parking. I'm pissed about it. But like, this is what we deal with. Or if I want to go to where the Lakers play, that's in downtown Los Angeles. But our metro is so indirect that it still takes me an hour and a half, whether I drive or I take the train.
Why?
And I have to drive to the train.
And that's before you even get to the predator problem.
Well, if you want to get into Los Angeles used to have the best public transportation system in the country.
Until the predators in the 80s.
They literally took our trains and threw them away. And so we became car dependent.
After what happened to Danny Glover, I don't fucking blame him. Can I stick up for public transit? You should seriously
like dye your hair pink and have it go straight up in the air. Because you are the most annoying little troll.
I want to stick up for public transit for once. I want to be the person who sticks up for public transit on this podcast.
Okay, good. I would enjoy that.
I think that people who love this stuff, and I'm for it, for the record, I'm for light rails, I'm for trains where they make sense. The problem is that we have this desire to create it that far outstrips our demand that it be created. I'm sure you could probably do some deep research stuff now on ChatGPT about the amount of money that has been spent from either states or federal coffers to public transit versus the mile of rail for which it has actually produced for it
very
to
expensive.
Be running. And it would be
20
hilarious
billion
expensive.
on the bullet train. Yeah.
Our desire to have it is not the problem. Our ability to do it, our competency in completing it has always been the issue. And this is where I for one am willing to say, if you're going to put the money for it, then eminent domain the shit you need to do.
Yeah.
Just get it fucking done. And the problem is we have this mushy middle where it's a lot more profitable to keep paying vendors to not do shit because there's a bunch of fucking bubbleheads who want this shit so bad, they're willing to keep paying for it even if it doesn't happen because aspirationally they desire it. So what I would say is like Austin's another one. They approved a fucking light rail, I think like 15 fucking years ago and nothing's been built. Like I have no problem spending the money. I have no problem with it in practice. You know,
and
to
good
get
news, we're spending the money. Like this is, I think, this is a good locus point for one of the big dysfunctions that occurs in America. Much of the time, I would argue most of the time, it's not a tax and spending issue. It's an allocation issue. When you look at like social safety nets, Scandinavia definitely spends more than we do, but France and Britain spend about the same per person that we do in terms of taxes. It's maybe like a $2,000 difference, but like they're not off by orders of magnitude in terms of what we tax and spend on average per person in the United States. But I'd argue that we're doing it poorly. Where the money's going is poor. Ditto with what's the current rate we've spent on the bullet train? Or I say we, California plus matching federal funds. It's like $20 billion.
That's not. It has nothing to do with the train. Justin's actually closer on this one because they refused to eminent domain the land that they needed, and so
what I'm saying is like we've allocated the money. The money's not the problem. The problem is the function. The governance is the problem.
Yeah. But people want the train, but they just don't want the train from going some farm outside of Sacramento to some farm outside of Bakersfield. Like we wanted it from San Francisco to LA, and that's not what we're getting. So the idea that we have more people that want the train than there would be demand, you have to have these things come frequently, and it has to go to where you want to go. And that's one of our problems here in the United States. If you go to Washington, D.C., where that metro goes everywhere, it's packed all the time. Same with Boston. Same with New York. Like where we do it well, people use it. But when you come to places like Los Angeles, where it's still not connected to the airport, they're close, but it's still not really connected to the airport. People don't use it because it's not efficient. Or like Austin. Austin has a really good bus grid, but it only comes once every half hour and it's not exact. And so if you miss that bus, you're stuck there for another half hour. That just isn't reliable. So we have to do these better. I don't think that it's an idea that Americans just like don't actually want it.
No,
that
public transit heads need to be more forceful on actual completion of these tasks.
Yeah.
And that is the one thing that I would say the abundance thing. Hopefully, if there's only one outgrowth of that book / movement / political ideology, it is complete the fucking jobs you're paid to do.
Yeah.
And just go take the political hit and fucking plow through and get it fucking done. But I don't blame fucking people in LA for not wanting to use a public transit system that has been infested with intergalactic bounty hunters. Weed in Texas is our next topic. A correct person writes, I want to express disappointment in Justin for saying conversations around weed have peaked because I felt hit a high would have been a perfect saying in his wheelhouse. I've been a Patreon sub of his for years, and it felt like he missed the mark. And I know how frequently he wouldn't have failed to hit it. You're right. I apologize.
That's your Kittimer, Justin.
Jen, have you ever seen Predator 2?
I have gotten none of the references in this episode. I'm just here.
The Undiscovered Country is a great film. You should totally watch it. It's an allegory for the end of the Cold War, and you would enjoy it.
So they wouldn't pay Arnold Schwarzenegger enough to do another Predator movie. So they just wrote a totally another Predator story, but it was when the LA train was new. But for whatever reason, they decided to make the Predator like haunt it, basically. And so that's all I ever think about when it comes to the LA
Wait, it's
train.
a ghost Predator? Wait, it was haunted by the Predator?
He was trying to kill people. So Predators are basically like, they're
Jeffrey
rich
Epstein.
kids. Well, there's that. They're like an alien
They're
race.
like intergalactic hunters.
Yeah. They come to Earth to hunt. But I think it's because they think Earth is like, the places where they stock game, like the places that like Dick Cheney shot his friend at. Like, I think that's what they think of Earth as. And so they come to like LA and they were like shooting and killing people.
To like harvest
Danny
us?
Glover was involved. No, it's for sport. Like they want to be like warriors. They're like a warrior class. But like, how good of a warrior class are you when you're coming to an inferior species and you have fucking infrared and invisibility tech and future weapons, and Danny Glover's got a revolver? Get the fuck out of here, dude.
That's fair.
Anyway.
Do you know what I always think of when I think of the LA train is, remember the movie Speed?
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of Speed, that's the LA train that they speed up really fast and then it flies out of it was being constructed and it like flies out and falls on its side. And that's when Keanu and Sandra kiss. Like that's my
what
train.
You think of.
That's what I think of every time I'm on that train.
Rolling in the Aisles writes, since the stand-up comedian of this podcast, Andrew Heaton, does not know much about sitting Texas Governor Greg Abbott, all I will say is that of every sitting governor, he would be the worst at stand-up.
Mainly because he's in a wheelchair.
I think that was the bit. Yeah. Hey, listener, listen, I'm willing to make cripple jokes if they're funny, but I'm not willing to make puns. I'm not going to do puns. I made a fucking HIV joke at the beginning of it, but I don't do wordplay. Move on.
Pour me another.
I have a question about Abbott. Have you ever seen them prop him up? Like to have him stand? Because I saw him talking after the floods with a really weird, probably inappropriate football analogy. But I thought he was standing. Did they ever do that? Like he can't.
They did that with FDR.
I think he gets up on a stool or something, or there's some kind of phrase. Yeah.
Because that might be why I was never aware that he was in a wheelchair. Because like I just saw another video of him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Finally, Pour Me Another writes, I mix drinks at a cocktail bar for a living, and I immediately related to your discussion of a bartender's responsibility to our overserved customers. It is one of the most awkward conversations one can have to cut somebody off. I also indulge in THC and hallucinogens from time to time. I think the basic training one expects from a bartender should be the standard for purveyors of weed, but as a Coloradan, I am not obligated to take any such training. I did anyway, because it protects me from liability. It didn't have to be forced. That said, I have designed a cocktail for each of us. And courtesy of ChatGPT, I've made a graphic for it. And I've included that in our doc. My cocktail is the Enigma Sunset. That is an ounce of dark rum, an ounce of mezcal, a half ounce of fresh orange juice, a half ounce of lime, a half ounce of simple syrup, and a half ounce of Campari. And that's apparently because it's a screwdriver, a rum runner, and a Negroni all in one, because I am an enigma. There is the Bicoastal Bikes Boozeless Buck, and that is 1 ounce of California nectarine, 1 ounce of Massachusetts cranberry juice, 1 ounce of lime juice, 4 ounces of THC infused Earl Grey syrup, and 4 ounces of ginger beer.
Actually sounds good. I would drink that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then there's the Lord Uncle Old Fashioned. That is 2 ounce quality Speyside Scotch, a 1/4 ounce of Grove Street Amaretto, 2 dashes of tobacco bitters, 2 dashes of Peychaud's bitters, and 2 dashes of aromatic bitters.
This sounds delicious. And I love bitters and I love old fashions. So this sounds perfect to me. Although here recently, like I like old fashions and I don't like usually have the ingredients to make them when I'm at somebody's house. So I'll just put simple syrup and bourbon and call it a last season, which I think is funny.
That's good. I don't know. There's a few cocktail bars around me. Maybe the next time that I'm there, I'll see if if they're like, oh, because they're always like cocktail bars that are like, oh, do you know what you want? And I'll be like, here's an info fucking graphic.
Is THC infused Earl Grey syrup a real thing?
It can be. Yeah.
I mean, I think you would just take Earl Grey syrup and infuse it with THC, right?
Yeah, you just
I don't know what Earl Grey syrup is. Is that a real thing?
it'd be like it'd be a syrup that is tea flavored, Earl Grey tea. So it'd be like kind of a citrusy tea flavoring.
Okay. Someone find out if this is a real thing.
And then you would put like, you ever seen tinctures, like a THC tincture? So basically it's just a bottle of weed of like that you put drops on your tongue.
Oh, okay. I have.
And that's how you take it. Yeah. So it'd basically be that. You just take that and infuse it into the syrup and mix it on up and then mix that into the cocktail.
This episode is really making me feel like the grandma who's just out of touch with everything.
I know.
The fact that you don't know the undiscovered country. Yeah. We're Tamagotchis. Jesus.
Yeah.
Tamagotchis is actually the fucking unforgivable sin for your cohort.
Yeah.
We're Not Wrong is a production of Dog and Pony Show Audio. Our editor is Will Saddleberg. On this edition of the show, I think Pam Bondi's getting fired, by the way, for that Epstein stuff. I think that she has
really
committed the cardinal sin of the Trump administration, which is she has become the center of a story that does not advance their interests. And she has an inability to put the fire out. This is what I like to call a scary-moochie problem. And I explain more on PX3. And then some inside the Capitol Dome gossip on how the One Big Beautiful Bill was passed last week and what too big, too beautiful, another reconciliation bill might look like. That's all on PX3.
God, no.
Jen?
So the latest episode of Congressional Dish is still my drones episode, which is still interesting because right now I am reading the Big Beautiful Bill. It's 840 pages. It sucks. And I don't know when I'm going to have a next episode for you because I have to finish this bitch before I can talk about it. So that's what I'm working on. But for now, go check out the drones episode because that one's scary.
Mm-hmm. What about the ORF, Mr. Heats?
So last week, I did states that weren't. Franklin, Nickajack, West Sylvania, which is actually a touchstone for like populism and these very old grudges that are happening right now in our electoral cycle. This week, I'm doing other states that weren't, but I'm going global. So the bonus episode that I've already done is why Trump is interested in Greenland, which actually goes back pretty far in American history. And the main feed episode this week is the 2 times we invaded Canada. So, like, if when you're reading about the Revolutionary War, has it ever occurred to either of you of like, why didn't Canada join us? Why, like, they were a colony? How come they weren't aboard? Why weren't they number 14? What happened? I get into that, and I get into the relationship between Canada and the United States when Canada actually becomes Canada, because Canada was a bunch of separate countries in effect until kind of late in the game, and specifically the 2 times we invaded them.
Look at that.
Didn't know that happened.
Get it. Until next time, this is your old pal, Justin Robert Young, for Jen Brandy and Andrew Heaton, saying, we're not wrong. The predators are.
Dog and Pony Show Audio.